All right, this is episode 35 of Our Script Octacut. I'm so excited to have Block Muse back on. Block, you were here about a year ago. We talked about NFTs. We talked a lot about Somnium space. And I was hoping today you could give us an update, not only on Somnium space, but maybe you. You know, the last time we talked, I think you were mainly a NFT collector. And prior to that, you're kind of like an IT guy. But what have you been up to in the last year?
Well, yeah, thanks, John, for having me. And it's always a joy to catch up again and see where things are at and revisit. And a lot has happened since then. I am, yes, I've sort of a 25-year plus background in IT, fixing my first computer when I was 10,
Mm.
but always fascinated with the human condition. So for those who don't know me, just a little bit of an insight. I was in, I grew up in Roman Catholicism in Ireland, never really took to it, understood there was a God. And I found a group who said, you know, we have the truth. And I fell in with a cult for nearly a decade and worked with cult investigative groups afterwards. So always questioning and finding the human condition or questioning it or constructing that. And so, yeah, so while taking apart computers, I've also taken apart the human condition and always fascinated in that pursuit. And so being through cults of, you know, American corporatism traveling the world, cultism, which was an American export I was involved in there, and being in the cult of the public health system in Ireland for nearly a decade as well in the IT. And so all that prepared me to be in Web3, which is a cult in itself and hasn't even been defined. So enjoying the journeys between the technical fusion and the sort of human condition. And so when you met me last, I was collecting a lot, and it became sort of, that was my initial identity in Web3. But I've now sort of since really consider myself more of an artist and poet. So I write a lot of poetry continually, and responsive poetry when I'm stirred emotionally. You know, I was in the protest movement in Ireland during the COVID, and nobody would listen. I had one or two viral stunts that went around, but aside from that, nobody would listen. And now to be able to speak into the culture and bring a sort of a linguistic that is harsh, but resonates because it's poetry. And so one of the nicest little hideouts for me in all that we're going to talk about, one of the most pleasant hideouts for me is just poetry spaces, which is the grassroots of that creative movement. So last night I was up for several hours co-hosting in a space, and we were sharing poetry from all directions of the scale. You know, I used to be in the horizontal left-right paradigm. Now I've left all of that show. I do create poetry to sort of shine a light on it. I now consider myself in a top-down paradigm. There's no left or right in my worldview now. And so, yeah, so enjoying it and exploring it. I've been involved in a lot of different aspects. Metaverse has always been, even since I was talking to you last, that idea of looking to where we're going. You know, some might arrogantly call it first mover in the technology side, but I think it's more than that. I think the idea of Web3 bringing people together. We're immersed right now in a culture that is them and us and separate, and you know, a house divided falls, and the powers that know this make people fight. And in the Web3 sort of art revolution that I'm in, we've had tearful moments on our Artist on Twitter show where we had Russian artists translate for Ukrainians. You know, this is the type of unity and expression. And if we are enemies and you are a creative who expresses, I can look at your work and, you know, I could be stirred or hate it, but be moved. And this is the thing. This is where, you know, the idea where I'm pushing a hashtag. I always love hashtags and where to go. Like the last time I met you, it would have been Vive la was the hashtag. Now, if you want to just summarize everything I'm in Web3 right now, Art Victorious, hashtag Art Victorious. If I
Nice
see
one.
it capture something, you can just look it up on Twitter and see what's under that hashtag. Does art win in the end? Everything we're doing here, everything in the metaverse, all of that vision. I always say, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time, and that's the key component in what we do and how we succeed and fail. Failing is an amazing, crucial part of this new era.
How we learn, right? How we learn. So I got a couple things on my mind there before we get too much further. One is I totally agree. There's a lot of divisiveness. This team against that team. There's all these cliques and groups, and it's great if everyone can come together in Web3. But what kind of tweaked my mind there is, there's so many people. Like, I'm on this platform, I'm not on that platform. So are you seeing more cohesion, or is everybody in their own little universe at the moment?
There's still like if I said to you, like, how silly what I'm about to say is, right? Oh, John, I was on Amazon Web Services today, and I saw this amazing page. It was like soccer updates about stuff, and then I went over to Google Services, and they were hosting an amazing web page, and it was some current affairs, and there was really good insight. And then I went over to this other. You know how silly that we don't know
ridiculous.
When we surf the pages that we look at, which of the 20, 30 plus top tiers of pages, including private web pages, my own private web page on a server. That's the mentality that we will be going to. We haven't even defined Web3 yet. So yes, you do have still got that, that sort of camp. And even the communities. I talked to some communities. I had actually this discussion the other night, and there was a community that's a real good community, but they're based around flying the flag of this particular blockchain.
Okay.
Like they're just doing their existing, and they find this underground and it's gritty, and yet they're promoting a company that spends 20 million sponsoring football teams in the mainstream, and you're like, okay, that's and so I'm chain agnostic. And what I mean by that, for those who don't even know what blockchain is, that's listening in or tuning in, those services where your exchange of digital certification, that I buy a digital work from you, or we exchange, it's on that blockchain. And the idea about being chain agnostic is that sort of like we have with the web page services, that it should be all interoperable. And they take their cut for their service, and so so that sort of sense of a movement. So when we do the Artists on Twitter community, myself and Bobby Bicker, on a Saturday night, we try and maintain that. Everybody wants to come and bring their their side or their team or their company that they're promoting, knowing or unknowingly. And where I really became chain agnostic, what helped me is that I was I'm very much into the independence, the Web3, the open source. There's Somnium, we'll talk about in a while, but they're developing an open source headset, as open as it can be, because there are licenses within, but you're going to be able to 3D print your own parts or things like that. And so the open source, or the ownership of your data, is critical. Now, because I come from a technical background, I normally don't talk technical, but what happened to me was that one of the biggest sort of known NFT sales platforms had a knock on the door, and they says, you have to ban these artists who are scraping a few pennies together to try and exist from banned countries, and remove them from your platform. And so the other platform that I was with sort of came out, and they tweeted out, and they had this, we will never do this, and and it was all this, and I was like going, yeah. Knock came on their door, and they produced a little substance in their pants, and they absolutely about-face deleted tweets, backtracked, and everything. And so that's an example of why I am chain agnostic, is the idea that and that's why going forward, my NFTs are not going to be produced. They'll be available on multiple chains or platforms to sell, not chains yet. Chains are still, multi-chain is still in sort of production, but the idea that I'll be just directing people to my website, and wherever you decide to buy it, they'll take their cut, and that's it. The contract is independently in my control, and so that's the way. So yeah, so we're learning as we go. But that, to answer your question a long way, is that yes, there is the sort of the this chain, that chain, and the chain gangs, I suppose you could call them, and they are there, but knowingly or unknowingly just promoting and pumping those platforms, nearly like free advertising.
Yeah, I think, parting's pump. What am I saying? Parting is pump of it. Pumping it is part of it. But I think it's also kind of cultish too, right? People are in their own little tribe, and it's not only about making the price go up, but they just think they're special because they're in there and other people aren't. But what you said right now kind of made me think, kind of broadened my mind. So I always knew that part of it. But I guess you're kind of saying too, for you, like you want to diversify because you never know what chain's going to go down, what platform's going to, like you said, someone that knocks on the door, tells them to take stuff down. There's a scandal, happens all the time. So it's best to be spread out as much as possible, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And seeing that, the idea that we talk about Web3 liberty, the idea of the freedoms, like something that you may not be aware of Somnium space is that they founded a alternative to Twitter on the blockchain.
Okay.
And so effectively anything I post there, authenticity, and RTHs in Ireland are very difficult to pronounce, so I did really well there. But so yeah, so authenticity is that blockchain based. So when I post, I'm posting on the chain, sitting in my wallet. So if you don't like what I post, if you're the company, if you're somebody who's triggered by me pursuing or speaking truth, the only way that can be removed is if you buy it out of my wallet, or I send it to you and you can burn it. And so the data doesn't sit with the company like Web2. The data sits. Now there's challenges, there's ups and downs, but that sort of integration into the metaverse, and again through Somnium, these amazing opportunities are starting to merge. There's people who are sort of leaving or working outside the Web2, tell us how we should be in Web3. And they're saying, no, we'll define it ourselves and we'll use what we see working.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to confirm, you said the name of that, what is it? That app within Somnium Space is called Authenticity or Authenticity?
Authenticity. Yeah.
Authenticity.
So authenticity.io. Yeah. It's independent, but it's going to be integrated. So Somnium just hooked up with a social audio company, or not a social audio, but a VR, social VR company. And they did you're going to be able to hop into one of the teleporting booths and just jump into that social audio feature. So that cross ecosystem is starting as well. And I bumped in the other night, I was in Somnium Space, and I bumped into, I was going to be meeting a contingent from Decentraland to come and visit me. And I was waiting. I walk up and I says, is this the group? And they're like, no, we're from this other social audio platform going to meet. And I'm like, this is the sort of grassroots where nobody knows what's going on, but these little connections between different ecosystems are now starting to feed into one another. And this is the exciting part. This is when, the rubber hits the road and you get to see features that work or don't work. And, that this is the joy. You try, but it's the relationship part. The same things are still successes. We might get enamored with the shiny spinniness of all the new technology, and it's the core: connection, communication, belonging, resonance, all of these things that when we get sort of comfortable with the technology, that'll shine through.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's good. Okay, I want to talk about Somnium Space, but I still got two things on my mind. So when you were talking about, I'm terrible with names. Authenticity, is that right?
Authenticity, yeah. Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that. And I also want you to define Web3, or tell me a poem about Web3, or recite a poem you've heard, or just explain it. So the authenticity, maybe 4-6 months ago, something like that, someone introduced me to Damus. I guess it was created by Jack Dorsey running on the Noster network or blockchain or something. Have you ever seen that Damus before? It's like a
I have. Yeah, I've come across a few of these. Now there's not just one or two, there's a lot of them trying.
okay.
Now, for me, the importance to me, a critical component
Mm.
is your data
Yeah.
and the track record of the founder, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, like, not to speak to any particular platform, but the track record of certain founders of certain platforms had algorithms that was labeling people we later found out whether they're part of one political demographic or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, while there's a lot of visual, audible, sort of talk and bravado and flair going around.
Mm.
There is a phrase that, you know, your actions need to be so loud I can't hear what you're saying. So the success in navigating these waters is seeing the actions, observing the track record, seeing where these people are who found different platforms or have a track record of previous platforms that may or may not have allowed people to come to the table in what I call, because I don't say free speech because that's too triggering to certain sensitive generations that are now coming up. So I sort of turn the language back upon itself, and I use part of my branding is like passionate, not like minded. If you want to say anything about me, that's it. So we can be so opposed or different or have different worldviews, but we can be passionate about the opportunity for the town square of ideas to come together and share. And that's what makes you stronger to inoculate yourself against me, or vice versa, or make me sort of say, actually, his point is really good because I haven't considered that. I may need to change my, and if we're in this sort of, you know, diversity as in divert city, we're never going to get that success. And you know, and that's what we need to. It's not inoculation, it's exposure, you know, and that I'm talking scientifically as well as metaphorically, and I'm talking to a lot of levels of what I just said there as well. And so yeah, so it's important.
Nice. There's an expression for that, right? I can't think of it right now. You can't change, zebras can't change their stripes or something.
A leopard can't change its spots.
Yeah, that's good. Classic, timeless. Okay, so sorry to put you on the spot, but have you heard of any poems about, or any poetry about Web3, or do you have like a short definition? Web2 versus Web3?
Let me check my repertoire here, because yeah, I sort of yeah, it's very, let me see. I'm just trying to think, what would I have? Normally I have a poem of that I would have about it, but maybe in the I'm thinking in the social or in the engagement, like, so while we're engaging with Web3 and to talk about Web3, nobody can define it yet.
Yeah.
You know, you get echoes of the idea of decentralization, you know, even where all the assets reside are in centralized systems. And so you know, we can't really define it yet. We have ideas, we have hopes, we have aspirations. We have the need for decentralized technology to empower it. A lot of what we're seeing, you know, even with some of the evil technology, I would say, that's slipping in behind that, like central digital currencies and CBDCs that are sort of coming in, because what you have is you have a generation and a culture who are happy with the open transparency and the beauty of an open ledger system. That's beautiful. But what's coming in on the coattails of that culture is the sort of the abuse of decentralized systems that have a centralized oracle who says, John, you haven't been a good boy. We're shutting down your accounts. And so that sort of evil. And if you want to say that there's, you know, if you want to say that there's something inherently good about centralized systems. You know, I can't help your programming. But yeah, it is. And so for me, it's the idea of those liberties that we have to enjoy and being able to divide it. So a lot of the poetry I write, while, you know, I can't even give you a definition of Web3. So the idea of sharing something on that.
That's okay. That's
Is
okay.
it? But I could give you a poem to give you a flavor of I have one which I wrote recently, and this is probably speaks to that. Now, a lot of my poetry is short form, so don't worry, it's not going to put you to sleep. I do the majority of my poems are quatrains, so I have a self-imposed pressure to share the poem and pack a lot in. So even if I have a title and I put a lot into the title when it comes, because when you've only got 4 lines, you're like, here's a whole other 20% that you could work with in a title. And some of the words and everything can pass by. But here's let me resonate with my view in that space poetically. This one is called I try not to explain my poetry, so please forgive me on this one.
Sure.
But this one is called Manger de mensonge, and you'll get where I'm coming from, and I just leave it out there.
Sure.
Light and shade in the masquerade, poets dismayed in attempts to persuade masses captive to medium and jackasses, frenzied feeding wrapped in mental molasses.
Nice. It's good.
So that's the type of, you know, subtle, soft, flowery poetry that I do write, but it is visceral, and it throws a grenade in, and it sort of says, okay, where can we throw a mirror on what's going on, and you know, and create discussion, or, you know, in that ultimate sense of art, that is it dialogical? Do you have that? You know, our good friend Henry has that ingrained, which is that, does it create that? And for me, that's what I aim for, is the idea that for those who would be able to go past being triggered or viscerally opposed to it, you know, but the idea that you could try and break it down and engage with something like that.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like long format, I guess it's called poetry, it just gives me a headache, you know. I can only remember 3 or 4 things, and then, you know, there's all these words I don't know, and then there's different meanings. But if you can break it down into 4 lines, it's like a haiku, right? It's something you can
very
swallow
much
in one bite. It's good.
Yeah. And that's a great thing as well. And what we do in the Artists on Twitter community on a Saturday night, 8 p.m. GMT, we have a few hundred through every Saturday, and we have about 30,000 members now in the Artists on Twitter community. But what I do is, you know, I'll have a poem for that, and I'll have these little moments or timeouts where we can just share a bit of poetry, or, you know, we have musicians, we have a lot of people, and so that is a critical component for me in how we navigate and understand where people are at, and share and express from all different walks and backgrounds.
Brilliant. It's good. So let me check the name. It's Artist on Twitter. You said Saturday nights.
Yeah, Artists on Twitter on Saturday nights. Yep. Myself and Bobby do it on Twitter Spaces, Saturday nights, 8 p.m. GMT. And so we're going to have, I registered a webpage. We're going to start putting a lot of content in there as well, aotc.io. Nothing there yet, but that's going to be building out aotc.io.
Yep.
So we called it was Artists on Twitter. Now that Elon has changed it, so we're going to be calling it Artists on the Chain, and we're still keeping AOTC. And so we've even made that community now platform agnostic.
That's good. It's brilliant. Nice, nice. So yeah, I love the poem. Just thinking if someone can't wrap their head around that, would you say Web3 is basically a decentralized world? Is that?
Web3, you see, like, okay, so we know the journey from, you know, text to images to centralized server access to creation to uploads and all of those. We know the web 1.x all the way up through web 2.x
Yeah.
and all of those. Now, you sort of have to have, the best way I like to describe it is that you had single ledger where, you know, John had his cows and he sold me a cow and he took his piece of paper and he scraped it out and that was it. Then all of a sudden, John wasn't such a nice guy and he was doctoring his books. So Block had a piece of a ledger and John had a ledger, and so then for thousands of years we went double ledger. And if John and Block decide to have this agreement, we could doctor the books as well, and then some other thing was needed. Enter treble ledger. So your blockchain is that independent. So John and Block have to be straight up with that chain, and if that is decentralized and nobody can sort of say, I'm sorry, John, you can't enter onto this ledger, triple ledger system now. You were a bad boy because we don't like you, which are the powers that shouldn't be. That system is nowhere I want to be hanging out. And so where it is that openness, that triple ledger, that liberty to transact and share and do it, it's so a critical component is going from your, like, let's say, you know, everybody knows an Amazon or an eBay or something, all centralized, controlled.
Yeah.
Well, if you break all that out and send it to all the corners of the earth and all around and satellites and everywhere, and there is no one space, nothing gets centrally taken out. It's all part of that. And then what can you have on top of it? The defining of Web3 decentralization, but then everything else that comes on top of that, liberty to express, liberty to, you know, create your own private pockets. Like, I'm looking forward to working with Somnium Space and having a poetry night where people who have a certain token in their wallet, and the wallet is checked, so you can't give it to a dissident to come in and sort of go and disrupt, you know. You can't transfer the token, but if it's tagged to your wallet and to the token that you have, you don't even have to have bouncers at the door of the building in the metaverse. You just walk straight through because that token is in your wallet. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like a sort of something that you can create revenues from. You know, there's a lot of opportunities through token gating. It is there already. People can do it, but in that decentralized metaverse experience where you're going through different places and according to whatever you're holding in your wallet gets you access to certain other places, you know, and even to the point where for me, the idea and is this idea of Somnium Space in their newest release, which is hopefully by end of year, this 3.0. I'm on the private release. Come September, I'll be privately testing it out.
Nice.
But at the end of the year, this whole experience is going to be able to afford you the idea to have all of your experience recorded within Somnium Space. So as I'm building and walking around and engaging and talking, that I will be able to have a live forever version of me walking around Somnium Space. And so the picture that I see is that I've done poetry resonating with art. So I see art pieces and I'll do a poetical interpretation. And through spatial audio, you can stand in front of that picture and listen to me do a poetical interpretation or a collaboration with that work. It doesn't have to be just me isolated, you know. And so the mastering of high fidelity audio, of token gating. So 100 years from now, if I do my job right, and I have these galleries inside in Somnium Space with all these works from the Block Museum collection, and you know, my children's children can go around and listen to this eccentric Irish poet rabbit on about these amazing collections and the experiences, and have that knowledge there in that. Now that can be freaky to some people, I know. That can be so freaky, you know, but when you consider it, and if it's like about me, then you miss the point. My main mantra is, does art win in the end? And using everything that we have technology wise to bring out the voice of art, that's the win in the end, you know. And so whatever we can do to embrace those technologies and build upon that which has gone before us, you know, and that's the beauty of it.
Nice. So just take it back to Web3 one more time. You're kind of saying the main thing there, or the first thing you were talking about, was sort of like a trustless environment, you know, the triple ledger.
Critical.
But you're also kind of, you know, saying that it's uncensorable. People can't shut you down, can't cancel you. There's some freedom to do what you want to do. And I guess also it kind of levels the playing field, right? So like a lot of people can have a lot more opportunities if they put their mind to it and have some good ideas. Good stuff. So let's talk about Somnium space. That the live forever part. Maybe we could start there. So I when I first heard it, I thought it was like using what you do to create a character that mimics what it's learned, like AI, and then it lives forever. But what you just said now was maybe it records what you did, and then those recordings last forever. It doesn't generate by itself.
It is actually, so effectively it's an AI engine that will be dedicated to your particular experience from within, only based on your agreement and engagement with that, and the mechanics are still to be brought forward on that. But where you said initially, there's sort of two tiers of that. The first one is like, I can use like there's a VR app, Mocap Fusion, and I can move with the sensors and just record my body movements.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to do that. So you can take it and bring it into Blender and put it as part of an animation. So you can actually literally just do, you know, your own animation of your character and have that recorded and use it for, you know, whatever. Limited only by your imagination. Like I'm going to be doing these IP-owned voids, visitors of Amadija, and I'm going to be doing a recording with them. That's going to be part of my testing, is to see, can I record my my aliens line dancing. I used to teach line dancing in the 90s. We won't go there. But you know,
that was the cult you're in.
That was another cult, one of the many. But yeah, and a group of line dancing aliens all recorded and done and brought in a piece, a work, you know. So
nice.
That's the first half of that recording, the practical. But then the AI engine that just takes in all of your nuances, your quirks, your qualms, the way you decide or process things, you know. So the idea of having that virtual you and it knowing, you know, anybody who knows me knows my favorite color is orange, or, you know, but will that change over 100 years? Will that AI develop a, you know, these are massive. There's more questions than there is answers to a lot of, you know, does it stay true to that? Does it break out? Does it evolve into, you know, these things? But or how can, like, if, long after I'm gone and somebody wants to talk to the Block Muse of 100 years ago, and they sort of ask questions, the nuances, the quirks will probably be all there. The little ticks or the way that the language is used will be there. But because of its engagement with, you know, maybe 1,000, 10,000 people through the Black Museum collection, it certainly really knows how to give the answer through the construct of my worldview to be able to bring that through, and how is it going to adhere to it, and how's the technology. There's nothing more than there's a million questions to every answer I can give you on that one, but that's the essence, is how you do it. And if you see Arthur's background story, his father died of his grandfather died of an aggressive cancer, and it's one of those things that's sort of in the back of his mind, is the idea of for his descendants to have an engagement or an experience with his AI live forever version of him. So yeah, it you know, there's this whole experience goes from, you know, creepy to amazing and everything in between. And so depending on how you look at it or what your goals are, it's, you know, it's another tool.
Yeah. No, I think it sounds interesting. I'm not afraid to try that. The thing, the first time I heard about like such technology was Elon Musk talking to Joe Rogan. He wanted to put the chip in your head. This is like maybe a year or two ago now. And he's saying, oh yeah, in a few months it'll be out and you just upload your consciousness to the cloud and then you can live forever. And I was thinking, yeah, that's a bit too far. I don't, you know, it's good to have a few secrets in your life,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But in this case, you know, you can kind of control what it records. You're not, you know when you're being recorded, and it's more
Yeah,
reasonable.
you're on set. You're
Yeah.
on set. No, so Chauhan's Block Muse might be way better than, you know, Protester Block Muse.
Yeah, that's cool. And then that AI engine is that decentralized? Is that running within a blockchain or?
Yeah, well, see, this is where a lot of like you don't have, so, you know, even where you say NFTs sit on IPFS, that literally sits on Web2 technology. So it's all currently in that centralized configuration, but the system is within the blockchain, and that's why there will be a cost, because that data has to reside. Now there is decentralized data blockchains as well that are growing in popularity and starting to really take off, because this decentralized data. So where will that data ultimately be in the final run is going to be on a bit of hard drive on your drive that you're getting paid a little bit of file sharing crypto for. And, you know, so that's the sort of Web3. So you can only embrace what you have right now and then build that out. But the architecture right now is decentralized. Like, I own plots of land within Somnium space. Somnium space don't, you know. And technically, like, if you consider, and this is one of the things that really impressed me, is that technically, let's say, for example, in Authenticity, all the people who post in Authenticity in this social media experience, they put those posts up and it sits in their wallet. That doesn't stop any other company engaging with that data from all of those wallets and creating a social media platform that works on that data as well. That's how decentralized. So the concepts are strong and at varying levels in accordance with. So I don't know I haven't been privy to the data management, but it's in a decentralized target. You know, that's where nothing is really decentralized as of yet in any aspect, you know. But that's the build towards in that Web3 structure. So ultimately, when everybody's getting paid and you're having data stored on your drive and all around the world, and people are getting file coins if you're using that blockchain, or different things for that, you know. People, passive income, you know, you've seen Bitcoin, for example. I don't know if you've ever seen the Bitcoin heater.
No.
So it literally, as it produces heat into the room,
miner.
it mines Bitcoin. So it's and people just getting bits. And, you know, 100 years from now, those Bitcoin heaters, if one's found in a rubbish tip, could probably make you a millionaire or something, you know. So
yeah, for
these
sure.
are the thoughts that we don't really, you know, that is definitely, while we're going to lose a lot of jobs that we know now through the technology in the future, one of them that's going to be absolutely like the guy with the sonar on the beach looking for trinkets. That's going to be a big industry for people going back to the time we're in now, looking for a drive or something that has a tiny dot of Bitcoin that's worth a fortune in years to come.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of new jobs. I'm not too worried about it. I was before, but, you know, like way back, everyone was a farmer, and then they weren't farmers, and they, you know, figured out something else to do. And it levels the playing field. Like, I was talking, I think in the last episode with an artist called Snarskis. He was kind of saying with like AI generated video makers and stuff, it might eliminate all the people from the movie set, but it also gives everyone on the movie set the opportunity to make their own movie by putting in, keywords, and anyone can do anything. They just have to get out there and try.
Yeah.
Not worried about that.
Or set up your own movie production company because, they don't like you in a certain demographic in the mainstream one. So Hollywood is imploding and destroying itself. And that's going to give great opportunities for independent movie creators, which it is, like one of the blockbusters that went out there recently from an independent movie company, Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Absolutely epic to see them. And Hollywood, don't seem to like child trafficking movies for some reason. Rolling Stone piece on them. And so so that whole independence now, where before you used to have to bow the knee to the people who are sitting at the top of the pile, and that's why, a slight digression, but I think music is, when we had the Napster and the MP3 debacle and music got hit, and now they've sort of gone to their streaming model. Well, it's going to come back again, because it's now the artists are going to be able to create, go to source, and battle between, like you said, in the AI there is that the music companies are now making their own AI, working on developing their own AI artists who make it so they keep all the revenue. And I can see that working, unfortunately, because the sort of consumers that we're raising in this new generation is, I don't care, I like it, and so that's the unfortunate side of it. And so for people who have a bit more of a moral compass, that's not this shallow virtue signaling one that we see in the culture, but a genuine moral compass, will have attachments, like right over here. You can see I have a vinyl album from Fifi Rong, who is doing an amazing job on Web3 music and doing an amazing work on that. And so so there are these wonderful opportunities for people to be empowered, like you're saying, on that level playing field.
Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, we're talking about Somnium space. Coins. I wanted to talk about, you said some file sharing coins, and this is totally random, but just when I was on the train the other day, someone was talking about Jasmy coin. I was like, I don't know what that is. And then they said Sony's might be behind it. And I think Sony's behind Somnium space. So I was going to ask you if the Somnium space has a coin or a token or something, or.
Yeah, well, they have cubes. They have their own crypto called cubes. And so cubes are effectively just a straight up, like most platforms or any ecosystem that you jump into has its own sort of coin system. So it's a cube. It's Somnium cubes. I don't use it massively myself, but it is there, and it's going to be more integrated through the 3.0 side of things, where the idea of exchanging or paying in cubes is just simply touching something in space. So a lot of the technology that was developed in these token issues or that side of it were principle. The technology is only starting to come in now, where that seamless interoperability, where you just walk up and you say, okay, well, Black Muse is doing a poetry space. I don't have token. Well, just touch this panel, boom. Or, and so that seamless integration. So I see the tokens within Somnium space and all these other environments definitely getting more traction and more utility as they get engaged or used, But the idea that you can change into the native token seamlessly now, Uniswap or any of these, you can seamlessly just engage or use it. And that's the same as well within Authenticity has its own token, and you would need a whole show. I've literally sat with the team in there to just understand. It's like a level playing field. As you post, you get rewarded.
Okay.
It's like mining Bitcoin. So it's a level playing field. Everybody starts posting. They get token reward. You can convert it into, you know, and when it gets to a certain size, you can convert it and just get ETH for it from all your earnings, or through backing people. You know, you were talking earlier on about the level playing field.
Yeah.
In authenticity, like there's no algorithm that says, oh yeah, you're a bit too vocal, we'll just throttle you down a little. No, it's who backs you. So if you jump on authenticity and I jump in first and I start backing you with auth token, there's pools that you have, and it's all based on pool. And so whoever is popular as a creative or a creator gets backed. And people, even if you're not a creator and you watch for who jumps on, onto a space, and I see John jump on, I'm in there first, and I'll get a piece of your pool being first in there more than others, and it's time. So it's a crazy. You have to download the white paper from the website and do some serious sitting down and seeing it, but it's based on the algorithm is actually people who say this is good. I'm enjoying this content. And to give you an example, one of the people within Somnium space, Ollie, she's amazing musician and perfect for what's needed. I always like that sort of raw, gritty audio sound that isn't this super polished top end type of, you know, lost in the connection, because I think connection is what people look for in that metaverse experience. But Ollie was backed by several of us inside in Authenticity when she posted a video of one of her songs. And it would have taken for her to earn the same equivalent in Spotify. She would have had to have 500,000 plays.
Wow.
And there's the contrast. And that's why I see music making that different. Now, she knew people. She's in that ecosystem. We all know her. She's worked to build that. Don't think that a musician right now who comes in and posts a music track is going to get that type of equivalence. No, but as you get known, as you move, as you engage, now take that independent as it is now, standalone social app, and then bring in the live streaming, bring in all the other stuff, and then bring it into the metaverse. Like I was building in Somnium space the other day. One of the things I waited for is I'm an investor, right? So you see pattern, you look at the market. So I had about 2 or 3 properties in Somnium space, and I waited for the news to come out. The metaverse is dead. You know, I was like, because I was in the 90s, and in the 90s, you could have bought Microsoft for pennies. Bubble burst, right? 3% of anything survives these big technology booms, maybe even less. It's going to be in this crazy Web3 environment. But I was waiting for the metaverse to be dead. And metaverse dead. Doom, gloom. Started. Nope, time to go. Collect a few properties. I have a lovely property overlooking the center of Somnium space. I might be calling it the Bard Block Cafe, you know, something like that, and having my live streams from there overlooking. If you look at Somnium 3.0, the visuals, the graphics upgrade in the new engine, really polished. And so that backdrop live streaming, or having token gated shows or anything like that, it's just at another level. And so I put couches on the very top of the building. I have a glass floor built out, and I just put the headset on, go out, and I can see across the lake and see Somnium Center across from me, no buildings in between me. And then occasionally they have, once a day, there's a fireworks to go off in the center of Somnium space. And it's just that sort of idea. And you're hanging there talking with people and having moments. And the experience in a sort of a VR metaverse experience, it does give you that sense of the person. You know, like I've sat with people, and I says, I've come away in this rural, high-speed broadband environment I'm in. I look out now, and I've got lovely acres of beautiful nature. I've got bay window right, left, and two big ones beside me, and I'm looking out at nature now. But I can have an experience, lift the headset off, and something within you says, I'm glad I finally met that person. We've just engaged in technology, and you know, all of that. And so what does that do for you? It ticks a box with a lot of people. And we think in our able-bodied experiences and yeah, go outside and touch some grass. What do you like? I know all the arguments. That's why I live among a lot of grass, you know, and cut it a bit more, but that's okay. But you know, yeah. And what about the people who can't get up out of a wheelchair?
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
what
have
is
these able-bodied avatars. You know, these are the things that people don't think about, and who you reach or engage with. And again, back to your level playing field.
Yeah, it almost sounds like lucid dreaming, right? Like everybody wishes they could dream on command, and that's kind of, it's not that far from that, is it?
It's in principle, it's only limited by your mind. Like you
Yeah.
now, like in Somnium space, since I was talking to you last, they have these worlds now that you can purchase, and they can be expensive, but effectively what it is a bubble you can put on your parcel of land. And these bubbles, like if anybody goes into somniumspace.com, you download the PCVR client. It's a little bit more technical if you're using like a Quest standalone, but it's all possible through Steam. You go into Somnium Space and you stand in the center, right where you spawn in the middle of Somnium Space. You look over, you'll see a bubble. Jump into that bubble, and there's worlds within worlds. And that's only limited by the creator's capacity and capabilities. So you can go into there's 3 bubbles you'll see, a large world, a medium world, and a small world. And the first one you hit into, it's called OMC. You walk in there and you can go in and you can choose multiple worlds to engage with and just experience. One is a campfire, you know, one's like a disco. There's so many, there's 7 or 8 of them that are other little worlds that you can jump into. And like you're saying, lucid dreaming, whatever it is, like for me as a creative, bringing artworks and an experience. Do you want to bring wind in? Do you want whistling wind? Do you want your poetry to be overlaid and create this experience that the moment you walk into this bubble, you can hear the whoosh, and then all of a sudden, here's my voice coming across that as you get hit by an amazing artist's work. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, what was that?
Yeah.
And you hit and you capture. And so again, you're limited only by your creativity. And this is getting easier. You know, the technical curve is still challenging, but as each of these iterations of metaverse platforms come out, it makes it so much easier. Like there's a great one. If anybody has a VR headset listening to this, you can jump into Neos for free and just have a little creative space. You can drag your avatar in, you can rig it up, you can do all these type of things, and you can literally, like I've stood there creating a world where you just have a little pointer on your hand and you point into the sky, and you create a skybox of the words that you just created in AI. So I can go into AI, I can say, give me a dystopian, a scene of this, and this, and detail it. And then all of a sudden, the machine just goes, a bubble pops into my experience. I click it into my pointer on my hand, and I fire it at the sky, and all of a sudden, you know, I could have a jungle. I have these jungle apes from a friend of mine, Ricky, who does NFT jungle apes, and he's a good friend of mine. We've met in real life, and you know, I've got these jungle apes on this surrounding this place, and they're holding fire torches, and I've got a jungle scene from a skybox that I just point into the sky and go, there it is. And no, I want it, and I say, no, I need it a bit more vibrant and a bit darker. And so I put the words in, and out pops this bubble. And that's only the tip of the iceberg of where we're going with technology. And Somnium is starting to do that in the 3.0 with Avatar. They're going up to 12-point motion capture as well. So you're going to have even to be able to load up more. And the on-ramp is going to be easier, and the technology. So yeah, it is fascinating.
Sweet. So I don't know, 12-point motion capture. Is it 6 right now, or what's the difference?
Yeah, so you've got 5. You've sort of got a 5-point. You can use the Tesla suit as it stands right now. So you can put on the full Tesla suit and have the whole experience. But the let me show you a tracker. Hold on. So you can use these trackers, which are like these are Vive trackers, and so you strap these to your leg or to your to your waist, and they capture motion. So if I want to do a record, like, so if I'm in Somnium space, I can have these attached to my waist, my 2 feet, and the 2 controllers that I have give me 5 point. Now, where it's going with the 12 point is elbows, knees, headset. You can just go crazy.
Wow.
New version of it, and so the nuances of your movement. Now, the live forever, that's going to be really critical, because if Block like speaking with his hands, this is going to come true, which I do. But this is going to come true as well. And yeah, so all of those little aids are going to help in your visual experience and your engagement. So if you see me walking around a bit straight-legged, he's going to, you subconsciously, you're like, yeah, that's nice. You're sort of like, yeah, I'm in a VR experience. Now, if you see me walk and stoop and lean and all of the nuances, what does that do? We know that 83% of communication is body language, right? So we all hang out as creatives in a social audio space, in Twitter Spaces. And we're just so tuned into that horrible mono signal, real poor, it crashes often experience, but we're all tuned in to listening to the voice. And people won't listen to bad audio. They'll switch off straight away. So that's why, as I say, I always make sure audio is good, but they won't listen to bad audio. Well, in the metaverse, that carries as well in the visual, in your body language. If you're able to see me in the metaverse as clearly as you can see me now in this camera, what does that look like? How does that feel in the body language and make you comfortable for an engagement? Because I've seen those type of quality in the metaverse, and it's some might say creepy, but it's another way of you communicating to another individual, from all across the world. And yes, you can. I'm hyper aware of the dystopian side and how that can be abused by the powers that shouldn't be, and that's why woven into that for me personally is the idea of liberty. I don't want to see Web 2 become Web 3. That type of turning the tap off and you can't say this and control, of the masses. It's the dystopian bit that I'm worried about. From looking at the other way, not looking at what that is,
I don't think you have to. I mean, sure, you have to worry, but I don't think we should worry too much because, we've said it a few times now, leveling the playing field. There's way more of us than there are of them. So I think they've lost the battle, They,
Oh man, let me share with you when I wrote one of the things, if you want to sort of put an overarching of my poetry, is the idea. Let me reply to you in poetry just about that.
For sure.
This one is called God Help Us. Minorities control majority. Ask history if you don't believe me. Society bowed low, performing in the impartiality show, transforming truth into lies, targeting those they despise. Why do I yearn for people to turn while venerating the internal?
Yeah, it's nice. We'll win. Maybe in the short term, it'll be a bit of a battle, but yeah, long term, have no fear.
Yeah, I absolutely, I have to grasp that with every belief and bone in my body and aim for it.
Yeah. It'll take effort, but it's attainable. Okay, what else? We were talking about different things. So some lines I remember from this talk. One is art will win in the end. Another time you said you're a bit of an investor. So with regard to Web3, have you seen things other people are doing, making money? We talked about, singers, music artists. You were talking about that cafe. So on the one hand, you bought when there was, blood in the streets. Maybe you got a good price. You could flip it later. But are you planning on charging admission to that cafe, or how I guess I want to hear about like functional NFT or functional Web3, how people are making a living in Web3.
Yeah, so there is a sort of I don't want anybody to come away who would listen to this interview and come away and say, yeah, he's anti-establishment, anti all. We need all players
Yeah.
in Web. We need all of them. Now, I'm prefacing this to answer, but I want to set the scene of the streets. What do the streets look like as I give you this answer? I want people to have a picture. Now, what happens is that, you know, I'm calling out certain things. My poetry is visceral. It does deal with the wider culture. And that's for the next generation to say, gee, maybe he was right. I'm happy with that. So I don't, you know, I don't imagine to get too much traction in my say I've sold quite a number of NFTs, and people do find resonance with what I'm saying. But to paint the picture and give you that long form answer you're used to me doing now, but in the streets of NFT, of creativity, of art, of earning, there is embedded within the culture. Don't put your head above the parapet, right? So we have a lot of people who want to swoon over big players or get seen or anything like that. But you can have an NFT that is stolen on one platform and it be marked as stolen, and another platform making millions because they don't put a little bit of code in their platform to say, well, if it's marked stolen over there, I'm not going to handle these stolen goods, thereby having the moral decency to cut millions from their baseline in revenue by just putting a little bit of code. These platforms are saying, oh, we've updated this. We'll make this shiny, spinny thing for you. I did a hashtag stop serving scammers, and I did a manifesto, and I did everything. And, you know, 0.0001% of the population stuck their head above or did a retweet or something, you know, and in that manifesto, I put the link to a video where I sat with a platform who sort of somehow I managed to get an audience with them on stage and say, look, you know, stolen goods are stolen goods. And so I put it to them, and we're waiting to see what way they eventually address it. So as I'm answering that to you, people who want to come into Web3 and they say, oh, it's scammy, it's all, yes, it is the Wild West, like a gold rush. And there's people looking out for themselves. There's people not calling out the evil and the, you know, the scamminess. So if it's lucrative enough for scammers to come in and they can raise finance on stolen assets from somebody else through a platform right now, you can sell a stolen asset to a platform or trade it.
Yeah.
So now your scamming gets better and better. And so your poor artist who wants to come in and says, I'm coming in, let me earn money and revenue, and I'm in a very poor position. And then they get scammed because of a culture that hasn't been addressed. Now, let me answer your question in light of that. There are wonderful opportunities to earn revenues within that Web3, and the technology is starting to grow. So token gating is one thing. There are some, you know, one of the things that I've been very cautious of is like the you know, the old school agent for artists, you know, the Jerry Maguires. And I've seen too many of them that come in with a slick, smoky accent and, you know, woo people, and they're not even doxed. And it's like they just swoon over them and throw art because they're a collector, and they, you know, and you haven't even seen their face, and yet so there's a lot of people with heads been turned and all of it. And so that's why making revenue in this space is so difficult. But now independent contracts, platforms where you can sell your art and they can end up being sold on, you know, 4, 5, 6 different platforms, and those platforms take their cut through the sale, but the contract sits with you. And so you know, there's money being made, but I don't want to see, and it will happen. It will happen. People say, I haven't got the time to do the marketing. Somebody has to do it for me. And yes, there is going to need to be that. So I actually have 1 or 2 friends that I've actually saying, yeah, they're doing a great job. So they do the old school, you know, function, art launch, Twitter Space Room. You know, like I've had the joy of purchasing an oil painting that's right here beside me. It's just been framed from an amazing artist in Norway, and it was a collaboration between him and a royal, and who did a poetry. And it was a collaboration. I own the NFT. I have the physical here, a large physical right beside me. And that piece, I gave permission to his agent to actually showcase it in Croatia at a big art launch that's going to have 200,000 through this month.
Oh, wow.
Just seeing it in a partnership with the estate of a very famous artist in the past. So it's like all of these things, and that's all revenue for that artist who's trusting in a good agent who's doing an amazing job promoting artists and helping artists and building collaborations. And so it is there, but I need you to understand, and people who listen to this who say, oh, it's all scam. Yes, it is. Nobody's lifting a finger. And so in that context, it's unfortunate. We all traverse life and we find, you know, I've had to learn the hard way. I had to be 10 years in a cult. Then I had to be in corporate cult. Then I had to be in a medical cult. And now I'm in an art cult.
Yeah.
You have to nearly, unfortunately, get, you know, deceived or scammed or hurt or, and you know, I would love there to be a book that we could all have read and just escaped all the troubles in life. It's not the way it is, but I hope that answers your question, but puts it in a context as well.
Yeah, it does. It does. And yeah, I guess it depends on your prerogative. Like there's numerous scam, you know, stories within Web3, but also if you look at real life, you know, like having to pay, we have to pay half of our money in taxes every year. Like that's the biggest scam going, you know, inflation, like people they just aren't aware of what the scams are. So
yeah,
you can't avoid it. At least you have a bit of freedom in Web3, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Any other things for Somnium space? Any other features coming out or improvements?
Well, there's they have sort of a lot of the navigation and the engagement. So, you know, when you're in Somnium space, sorry, you have a tablet that gives you access, and you can have a map and a layout and where to go, or you can teleport. But now with the social VR experiences and all the other bits and your avatar and your creation. So like, for example, which, you know, nearly to answer your question about revenue, you could, like I have a significant amount of IP owned, fully rigged 3D avatars that are NFTs that I own the intellectual property rights to.
Like the voids?
The voids.
Yeah.
But they have another project that came out after that called The Visitor. So the visitors of I'm a Degen are aliens as well, but they're different. The artist, and you see, this is the difference. So the artist Holiday, who created them, he works in sort of in mainstream production of video and movie and stuff.
I'm getting confused. There's the Lambos too, right? Are those?
Yeah, the Lambos. Yeah. They've the Lambos. The wind Lambos are these little counter enemies of the voids.
Okay.
But what happens with the visitors of I'm a Degen, the Voyagers were coming out, and so the lore behind it was that if you put, like, I was a significant collector of the voids, and the lore that came out, you know, the way in NFT you've got traits and what's rare and what's that. Yeah. So and this is why I'm calling him the artist. So you have your PFP culture that says, oh, floor and price and rarities and all that. Unfortunately, that infection got into the fine art world, and I speak against it quite often, against that idea of floor and pumping this. And no, art is art, and you should let it have its own voice and not be subjected to this PFP culture. And so really, you know, I love the aliens and the voids and the cheekiness and all of the traits that came out of the first voids. And so the Voyagers, keeping true to the acronym, Voyagers of I'm a Degen as opposed to Visitors of I'm a Degen, the original. Holiday put this beautiful lore out. And so the lore was that this black hole was forming, and anybody who threw their visitor into the black hole, there may be a hope that something would emerge back out from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gave him the opportunity to see who will trust me as a creative to create something that you do. And so I had about, I think it's 120 roughly
Wow.
voids. And so in one big statement, for me, I'm a high risk guy. So I'm a high risk guy. So I sort of says, you know, I stand with this creator. Look what he's created in the visitors, giving him full support. I threw every single one of my voids into the void, saying I stand with you. I no promises of anything. There was zero promises. I threw the whole collection of mine into a black hole, which was a wallet where they just went.
Yeah.
Not wondering what was going to happen, whatever happened, and so what resulted was the Voyagers. So they came back, but they had to be rescued. So you send a Voyager in, and a cube came out, and you had to burn this cube to reveal a Voyager. And if you wanted to get back a visitor, you had to burn a cube to get back a visitor. So on launch day, I was like, I think it was a week before I burned all my cubes to get these Voyagers, and I landed some amazing characters. Like, you know, they're exquisite, and so, you know, none of the traits on these, so there's minimal traits, so you can't even tell which is rare and which is not.
Mm-hmm.
They stand on their own as a creation, and so I now have a cast of Voyagers, and it's been phenomenal seeing that development, because I'm styling certain characters. Like I have one of the original that I actually had to go and rescue and send a cube in to pull back, one of the sort of rare voids who have these VR headsets, because he's going to be posing in one of my galleries as in the shape of Michelangelo's David.
Nice.
And he's naked. He's a silver naked alien with just a headset, but he's going to be posing, and you're going to just see this big towering statue in one of the things. And so, you know, and acting and using motion capture with these characters. So I have poetry, I have a cast, and as the technology hits the sweet spot using things like Unreal Engine and the facial captures, I want to be able to communicate through these characters using the best technology I can, so that when you see these voids quoting poetry or line dancing or whatever the limits are, you have an engagement that's like realistic. And yeah, so that's sort of the idea behind those, is that I can take those into Somnium 3.0, and they have wardrobes and everything, and you can actually sell those or put them on market. And do so there's we're only scratching the surface, and so there's a lot of technology coming in Somnium that's going to allow you to wardrobe up your avatar, and that's not a small thing. I've spent hours in Blender trying to change a shirt on an alien, and hours upon hours. Now to be able to do it in Metaverse and click a button and just put on clothes, that's a game changer. You know, and especially for people who are big into their social engagements and how they look, and it's a big market. So yes, it's another great feature that's going to be part of Somnium as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I guess we'll wrap up pretty soon. In the beginning, you were talking about not the zebras, the cheetahs. They can't change their spots. You got to have, like, you know, a solid reputation. So that's solid advice. On the other hand, some projects are using DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations, or the governance models. Have you seen any good examples of that, or is Somnium doing anything?
You see, you have to understand, and we on Artists on Twitter, we interview some big names occasionally, and one of them, an amazing. He's a negotiator now, but a big time lawyer in California. We've had him on the show a few times. Mitch Jackson is his name, and he's probably one of our resident experts within Web3, giving advice. He's actually doing a show tonight. I'm listening to this. He's doing it on spatial.io. I'm going to be attending it, where he's going to be giving advice to Web3 people. And one of the earliest advices he gave us, because I questioned him back on that show a few months back, was a DAO, and it doesn't have a legal entity per se in common law or in the legal system, like let's say in America. And so the idea and the structures are nearly ahead of where the legal system is. And for me, being through cults, being through everything, sometimes you only get one shot at something before, you know, your name is tarnished or anything. So I'm always conscious of where I go or what way I might approach doing something, because DAOs are wonderful, wonderful decentralized autonomous organizations. So the DAO is a wonderful way of sort of that decentralization or empowerment or bringing people in. Have I seen one that works? I can't really point to one that I say, you know, the principles are excellent. I've seen the sort of the voting systems can be excellent. But again, democracy is perfect until the tyrants convince the 51 to murder the 49.
And they always do, right?
They always do. It's history repeated and minds left defeated. Never again. You know, they said that then. That's part of one of my poems. But yeah, and this is a thing. And so those systems or voting systems, you know, is there, I'd love to see a republic DAO that has that representation for the ones that don't agree. That sort of, you know, is there a republic DAO, you know, because democracy is one of those shady ideas and visuals of freedom, but it fails eventually. And so yeah, so I can't put my name or say, yeah, here's this one that works really well. You just see, I think like a lot of the technology, we are in this shiny, spinny thingy syndrome. Oh, a DAO, and it's all in it. And then it's nearly like you check out and you say, oh, they've got a DAO. It's nearly like it ticks a box, but does it perform? And we've seen it. We've seen some. I've seen some in the gaming side of things that have done some really good, you know, community layers within that are based off sort of good blockchain backends that are doing it. So I've seen some, because I've invested in one, and I says, okay, well, I'm going to try their gaming environment. They're in beta, and I was like, oh, this works. This is cool, and they have a good sort of team that go in onto that structure, and you know, nearly as close to a sort of that republic or that group of different representatives in different topic, as opposed to straight democracy. Do we go this or do we not? You know, and so they talk it out. A good DAO will have labor intensification, and that's normally broken out into groups, as opposed to a lot of DAOs are centralized. Yes, no, vote, next. Who put that proposal forward? Where's that coming out? Oh, this committee. They're doing. Oh, okay. But you see, it's labor. So I always say, if you come across DAOs, don't look at the shiny spinny and the yes, yay, nays. Who's involved? What is there? Committees? Is there subgroups? Is there? And then you're saying, okay, oh, there's a bit of labor in this one. This might be one to be interested in. So again, actions, not words, is a critical way to filter through and see through a shiny DAO.
Yeah, it's good. It's not so simple.
No.
Okay. Thanks a lot, the alt block. It's been fantastic. Maybe we could have you back on. You said in 6 months that Somnium 3.0 is out, right?
I'll hit you up once the open release is there, and what we'll do is I'll do a sort of I'll engage you from within Somnium. You know, I know I've had people in there before, but to be able to bring you into that experience and just listening to the water and just relaxing and engaging. So we'll set up the stream from within. So I'll have the headset on and the trackers, and we'll just do the full engagement from there. And the streaming facilities right now in Somnium, you've got about 2 or 3 camera settings for streaming and facilitating sort of a screen. In 3.0, you have a lot more goodies. And so I'll be able to give you the shots that are nice for people to engage with. And that's the thing, that's where it's nice to sort of give the visual in the way that the viewer wants to do it. And for me, as a poet, I could go on to AI. I could read my poetry and have an AI anything overlaid on it, but I've actually done cinematography for any of the NFTs that I've released. So I've had to learn the shot. One of the poems is a call to go upstream. Who will go against the flow? Dead fish don't swim upstream. And there's a pause. I had Percy the dead fish. I was standing in a stream with my waders, people passing by, seeing me throw this dead perch upstream, and I'm standing with the net to catch him because I wanted that money shot where the fish pauses and gets stuck and then eventually gets released and flows downstream. So there's a pause where it says dead fish don't swim upstream. He gets stuck in the flow and then gets released. It took me about 80 throws of Percy the dead fish.
Wow.
And so the visual was there. And so for me, the visual in how you engage. So engaging with you, like even I was debating, will I do it in 2.0 today? And I was like, nah, wait for 3. And so, yeah, so when we do that, and even before, like as I'm going through the testing, when it's stable, I'll hit you up and we can have a sort of an experience proper.
Can't wait. Awesome, man. Okay, thanks, Block. Take care. See you around.
Ciao.